I'll be reading mostly new poems from manuscript for a second book that is called Some Say the Lark. And that quotation comes from Romeo and Juliet, the Ovid scene, during which Juliet tries to convince Romeo to stay by lying to him about what she sees in the world around her. And that's partly the guiding emotion of the manuscript, a lot of deception, but also women's voices. And I would be remiss not to mention Audrey Rich, who writes in one poem, "Any woman's death diminishes me." And so there are a lot of ghosts of women writers, silent sisters, I like to call them. And this first poem I'm going to read comes from that sort of feeling. A few years ago, actually it was in New Hampshire where I was at uni, I went to visit Willa Cather's grave, and the grave was mammoth, and I have been a long time admirer of Willa Cather. She's my first great American novelist that I was obsessed with. And next to the grave was a tiny little grave that belonged to her partner, Edith Lewis, and we talked a little bit about who Edith was. And she was, the long sacrificing partner. So this poem is sort of to her, sort of to the conversation I was having at this gravesite. And the title is "There Are Too Many Other Birds to Write About." At the grave of Edith Lewis, longtime companion to Willa Cather. Loyal stone, I never knew you. In the city I was in Nebraska, I also had an ending. I swept the sky, one lousy hurt after another, dying to become a newer field. My guts vast, impossible. This is not autobiography. I have no memories. I found you sleeping past the 20th century, where desire begins at curiosity and the balladeers are cutting checks for unwritten songs. Oh, America, you once sang. Why? You trained it from New York to Santa Fe, your love never quite measuring 3,000 miles. And that's marriage, and that's death. Oh, America. I'll never go far enough wanting one man, then another, believing every state bird is a cardinal. For the cardinals wake me every morning with one stuttering admonition. She, she, she. I'll never shut them up. I'll never fail like a genius. I'll open the window and howl my no, the weakest of thunders. A small stone marks the life of a sorrowful woman. Are we not all her keepers? In Nebraska, I chased a brown bird, so quiet I never learned her name. Terra Incognita. It's in 3 parts. 1. I know meager words to redress sorrow, consolation, and immediate race. It is, I explain, what sorrow needs, how it happens. A door falls out of the frame, and you're more open than you'd like. Tonight, I was dockside, hating you, hating. But what good is that? My ship did not wreck nor round a graver coast. I sailed only so far as to always be sure. 2. Mostly I stayed home, attendant to a weight I still can't name. I watched the waves and each became my love, a whiplash of salt, cold constant chorus, my heart's oceanic erudition. Because I have never known all that feeling knows, the sea wins the rocking contest every night, my ship sailing without me. Of houses I know I am fierce familiar. You ate from my silent plate, drank my silent imposition. Again, the sky in flames begs for more. Wasted clock, unread books. There is no meaning in things or words. More, you said. More, cried the sea. More. 3. Once I wandered a shoreless country, its flaxen fields vast as maps, where strangers swarmed the streets like pollen and claimed primitive awe. You were not there. You did not see the craft with which I got lost. Of the world's unforgiving order, I am grateful that it is without wrath. Our ancient tree, struck by storm, splintered at roadside. Please note, its destruction spared the house. I'm having this sort of sensory incongruity. I'm in this metal shop and I keep smelling lilies. It's kind of exciting. So I've shown my manuscript to one of my dearest friends several months ago, and she asked me to write an explanation of the title, and as I want to do, I rebelled, and I didn't quite give an explanation, but I wrote this poem instead. And it borrows lines from Romeo and Juliet, and otherwise, it is what it is. It's a prose poem, and you guys have heard it already. My students are here. And yeah, some say this is an invasion. I say it is a lark. It has an epigraph. It is a lark that sings so out of tune, straining harsh discords and unpleasing sharps. Some say the lark makes sweet division. This doth not so, for she divideth us. On the phone, my mother describes a television show in which 2 people live on stage in front of an audience. The audience goes home at night, but the 2 people stay on the stage, sleeping on their stage bed, waking to their stage breakfast nook. At night, they exist in the dull light of exit signs. But these exits are not for the 2 people on the stage, where they now live wedded to calamity, where they must stay for an unknown number of days. I ask my mother if she watches the audience or the 2 people on the stage. She does not think this is the right question. The 2 people on the stage are as bored as she is, only she has no audience other than her children. I call her on the weekend to ask about her week. She tells me about a television show. Are the 2 people married? Do they have a window? Are we the children of an idle brain? Again, these are not the right questions. When I watch 2 people on stage, I indulge in the belief that everyone is listening. Every word that is spoken makes the speaker more real. But soon, she pierces the fearful hollow of my ear, and I am only listening to her. She's misreading the world. She will do this until the world is corrected, or she is. It is night, she insists. A noise from outside tells her so, a meteor exhaling. He disagrees, but what does it matter? I know it is night. I hear a stranger pacing the sidewalk outside our house, which reminds me to lock the front door. Our house shall have no plague. There are those in the audience who will stay through the night because they believe what he says. Night is over and day is coming. I would say they are all mistaken. Even she is mistaken, but I am no longer listening. Our street lamp flickered out 2 nights ago. We are expecting an evening snow. And this is from my book, The History of Anonymity, and it's a sort of conflation of fairy tales. Obedience or the lying tale. I will do everything you tell me, Mother. I will charm 3 gold hairs from a demon's head. I will choke the mouse that gnaws an apple tree's roots and keep its skin for a glove. To the wolf I will be pretty and kind and curtsy his crossing of my path. The forest, vocal even in its somber tread, rages. A slope ends in a pit of foxes drunk on rotten brambles it buries, and the raccoons ransack a rabbit's unmasked hole. What do they find but a winter's heap of droppings, a stolen nest, the cracked shell of another creature's child? I imagine this is a rabbit way, and I will not stray, mother, into the forest, where the trees meet the dark, though I have known misgivings of light as a hot hand that flickers against my neck. The path ends at a river I must cross. I will wait for the ferryman to motion me through. Into the waves he etches with his oar a new story. A silent girl runs away. A silent girl is never safe. I will take his oar in my hand. I will learn the boat's rocking and bring myself back and forth. To be good is a hurricane of caution. I will know indecision's rowing, the water I lap into my lap as he shakes his withered head. Behind me is the forest. Before me, the field, a loose run of grass. I stay in the river, mother. I study escape. One of the things I've been playing around with is trying to figure out my relationship to the literary tradition. And that sounds really big and lofty, and it really isn't. It's just I spend so much time making syllabi and teaching courses and picking out what books my students are going to read, and I find that to be very problematic sometimes, especially given the absence of women's voices or the figuration of women as objects. And so I'm very interested in Renaissance lyric as a result. So this is a sort of rewriting of Sir Thomas Wyatt's poem, Whoso Lists to Hunt, in which the speaker chases the deer are women, and you know how it is. So it's my little deconstructed sonnet of that, and it's totally, it's also an example of what a bad reader I am. I probably don't get most things I read. And there are some quotations from the poem, but otherwise it's just me. So, whoso lists to hunt. When there was such a thing as correspondence, landscape was a verb, honor was a verb. I rode on a bus and saw a city park where King once hunted deer. Yes, I wrote, in a net I seek to hold the wind. I live in history. My wild English, a yellow blur of faces, a stranger's watercolors drying paper to brittleness. Now my life consists of pronouns. Where deer fringe the field, I stand with my hands out, another animal wanting to be free again. There's a word for this, like a cobblestone dislodged from the thoroughfare. Brittle page, history, what am I to you? Thinking is today's minor captivity, from which I won't be rescued, this delicate trespass. Fainting, I follow, I leave off, therefore. What is nature? The grief that makes me free. There was a while when I was having a lot of trouble writing because I was in graduate school. I had to write papers and teach classes. Sorry, Rebecca. I was teaching Rebecca. And what I would do is I would just make myself, respond to these moments where I was just frustrated, confused, or just I felt disembodied and at the same time mindless. So I made these little things that I called Epistemes, which are systems of thought, and they're just spontaneous little things. There were dozens of these, and now there are only 2 left, and this is one of those that are left. Episteme 12. 2 radish leaves tell me you are gone. I sat in the night field to better articulate the stars. I pretended to hate you. Now rain, reading me well. Pine hills on the western path to you, the hemlock clarity of the grove, the first radishes of the season, distant traffic outpacing my thoughts. I have one thought, noise wrecked a Socratic question. Why Jack in the pulpit and the tyranny of ailanthus trees? I bite the bitter root of loving you. I unstitch rain from wax flowers, monks' hoods. If loving were the August truth, white rage, hard flesh, the skylark is more hardy than the nightingale. His review of my first book, and it's a perfectly fine review, and then it just says, there are too many birds in this book. And there were 3. I can count it. And now I feel like I'm kind of pissed off, so I keep putting them everywhere. Because I also want to be a poet. So I'm not going to ask you to forgive me, I'm just going to put them there. So Dorothy Wordsworth is someone I've always been interested in part because she has these beautiful journals. I can't remember the name, the Grasmere Journal, that was one I'm thinking of. And what's wonderful is that she not only records her environment and just fragments of the landscape, but sometimes she'll just write, I can't remember today. And that seemed apropos because she's the silent figure in so many of Wordsworth's poems, the you, who never gets to talk back. So this is a poem that's titled Dorothy Wordsworth. It's not in her voice, it's in my voice. Dorothy Wordsworth. The daffodils can go fuck themselves. I'm tired of their crowds, yellow rantings about the spastic sun that shines and shines and shines. How are they any different from me? I too have a big messy head on a fragile stalk. I spin with the wind. I flower and don't apologize. There's nothing funny about good weather. Oh, spring again, the critics nod. They know the old joy, that wakeful quotidian, the dark plot of future growing things, each one labeled Narcissus nobilis or Jennifer Chang. If I died falling from a helicopter, then this would be an important poem. Then the ex-boyfriends would swim to shore, declaiming their knowledge of my bulbous youth. Oh, flower, one said, why aren't you neat? But I won't be another bashful shank. The tulips have their nervous joie de vivre, the lilacs their taunt. Fractious petals, stop interrupting me with your boring beauty. All the boys are in the field, gnawing raw bones of ambition and calling it ardor. Who the hell are they? This is a poem about war. You can laugh. Some say the lark makes sweet division. I have a daughter, I say. Here is my daughter, I say. And here is a poem where you and I intend a cool hour in the future. I break your heart. That is how a poem should begin. And then you break my heart, because that is how a poem should end. Sap, sucker, scarlet tanager, Carolina wren. We are awake in the bird ruckus, dawn riot that frees the sun to heat. You must believe me when I tell you my daughter is made of salt and noise and dew. Every poem is Eden, and every poet is Adam, and isn't that the silver gate unlatched by a hermit soldier wielding the sword of flame? Open the windows, magnolias and their rotting blooms, latch that gate, keep out the drought, the ruin post-solstice, our season's late blaze. I am counting, counting, and this is what I learn about love and how to have a daughter. The world is starting over in this poem. You have a lovely daughter, you say. because the trees are kind to you this morning, and you are learning from the trees. Catalpa, elm, let's name her together. I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. The morning wants a child, but here is our sweat, and what is a poem? We are counting, counting. A poem is a measure of time. I want to hear a story only you know. How far did you swim to the pelicans loitering on the dock? And how old were you when the reach of your arms matched the pelican's wingspan? My daughter has no name because she is only a word, and you are a man like an alphabet, fundamentally wise. When I ask for the time, when I wonder about the weather, you say fine and fine. So I have one last poem to read. Thank you again for listening. This is an experiment. I don't know what to say about it. I did a reading last night, and I basically reading the same poems. And some people who were there are here tonight too, so I feel like I want all. Anyway, so this poem is called The Strangers, and I was trying to write for a long time a poem about Mary Wollstonecraft's diaries, or not diaries, her letters from when she traveled in Scandinavia. And they're all about the landscape, and yet they're also all about her heartbreak. She had just gone through a really devastating experience with a terrible man, and I couldn't get the poem going. And as I was working on it, two of my very good friends were having their own heartbreaks, and I felt this great desire to bring them together in the poem. And this is my attempt to do that. It's called The Strangers. Mostly, I hope. In the industry of specifics, I list my Sally trees, my letters to Paul. Everyone is speaking at the same time. The rain is speaking at the same time. Strangers stand in the avenues, in the meadowlands, in the waiting rooms of mightier offices. They are looking at their hands, thinking they are looking at the past. This is the ordinary march to justice, Mary Wollstonecraft writes. Reader, they are looking at the future. Look, I have the hands of an American poet. Sally wields her radiant leaves, while Paul is sincerely, always yours sincerely. What if, I ask the strangers? Mostly, I hope for snow in winter and the fortitude to bear it. I ask the strangers, if love were privation and therefore infinitely imaginable, would I nurse such rootless sentiments? Would I hope myself into yet another quiet vessel, striving against bad weather? This vessel, an argument against vindication. I'm not sure why the strangers have made a home of everywhere, why the veins of their palms whirl in the wrong direction, but I reach out to them. Our very soul expands, and we forget our littleness, Mary Wollstonecraft writes. West, west. All the strangers are heading west into the prairies, and then the mountains, and then the coastal cities, like a flock of water-hungry lemmings, like a flock without fear. And if there is no future snow, then will there be neither catastrophe nor love? Mostly, I hope to write back Paul. When the strangers reach ocean, they see they have not in fact reached home, their hands white flags hailing the furious shore. Or the wave-struck shore, the shore cleaning its pale strand over the world's erosion. Dear Paul, when you died, I knew that love held a terminus too dear, and it is strange to love what won't be, and to be every dead thing is stranger. Dear Paul, I miss chiming in the dark. Mostly I hope to fill the blank pages of your hands with snow and doubt. But to return to the straight road of observation, Mary Wollstonecraft writes, if love is not privation, then is it too much? Is it too much? It is much too much. And now I explain to Sally that the remnant prairie is also not love. however long it frets. It is not yet winter. I have been awake in your silence. The strangers grow tired of poetry and will not sit in the light. Thank you.